Good morning, everybody. I'm United States Attorney Zachary Myers for the Southern District of Indiana, and we are here today to announce the arrests and indictments of the indictment of 19 individuals charged in a series of federal indictments related to an ongoing federal operation targeting armed fentanyl and methamphetamine traffickers here in central Indiana, including impacting Indianapolis, Anderson, and Muncie. Today we're announcing that 19 individuals have been charged across these 4 federal indictments with a variety of federal offenses, including engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, fentanyl trafficking, methamphetamine trafficking, illegal firearms possession, illegal possession of machine guns or machine gun conversion devices, and related firearms offenses related to the drug trafficking. I want to thank the law enforcement leaders and prosecutors who have joined me today to make this announcement. ATF Assistant Special Agent in Charge John Noakes, Deputy Chief Kendall Adams of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mike Gannon of the DEA, Postal Inspector Rodney Hopkins of the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, as well as Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jason Bushy of IRS Criminal Investigations, and Special Agent in Charge Herb Stapleton of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I also want to thank the prosecutors responsible for this prosecution, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Kelsey Massa and Michelle Brady. So the number of agencies you see represented here today and involved in this operation, I think, speaks to the importance of what we are doing here together as federal law enforcement. We are here to do everything we can to make our public safer. And we all know that deadly weapons and deadly drugs have been a scourge for far too long in too many of our neighborhoods. And specifically, the threats that we're facing right now, the distribution of fentanyl, of counterfeit pills containing poison that is, far and away the leading cause of overdose deaths in our community and communities across the country. The proliferation of deadly weapons in the hands of violent criminals, including not just firearms, but Glock switches, these small devices that turn a already deadly firearm into a machine gun, escalating the danger that it poses to innocent people in our communities. And through a year-long investigation across all of these federal agencies, not just those represented here today, but also the Federal Homeland Security Investigations, the U.S. Marshal Service, and many local police departments, as well as the Indiana State Police, have all worked together to bring these indictments and these arrest warrants and search warrants that have been executed primarily yesterday morning to fruition. Of the 19 individuals who have been charged in this case, there are 3 who remain fugitives, who we are actively seeking, and who you're going to hear from the ATF about, seeking your assistance in identifying them and bringing them into custody so that we can, begin the federal court process against them and we can safely, get them into court. The work represented here today has resulted in, thus far, the seizure of over 32.8 kilograms, over 72 pounds of fentanyl. That is 320,000 approximately fentanyl pills. And if you've heard anything from me, from the DEA, from our partners across federal law enforcement, from our partners at Indiana State Police, we're deadly serious that one pill can kill. And this is over 320,000 of these pills, counterfeit pills made to look like legitimate pharmaceuticals that are filled with poison that just the wrong one of them could end your life. And thanks to the work of these law enforcement agencies, they've taken over 320,000 of these pills off the street. These drug traffickers weren't allegedly limiting themselves to distributing, large quantities of fentanyl. This investigation has resulted in the seizure of over 117 pounds of methamphetamine, another deadly drug that has been a scourge in our communities, as well as over 450 pounds of marijuana, and importantly, the seizure of 113 firearms. A for between charging 19 individuals, a shocking number, I would say, of firearms that have been seized, and not only 113 firearms, but 60 of these Glock conversion devices that can turn a firearm immediately into a machine gun. So when you have armed, prolific drug traffickers with arsenals of weapons, that's something that the federal, state, and local law enforcement have to work together to put a stop to. And we are continuing to work and continuing to make sure that we identify and arrest these people, including the 3 fugitives that remain. And this investigation has also resulted in the seizure of over $500,000 in cash. And the reason that we do this is because the drug traffickers who are out there, the people who are running around with firearms, shooting people, killing people, endangering our community, they need to hear that this is what's coming, that federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, local law enforcement, we work together to identify the worst offenders. We will spend the time that it takes to identify everyone involved, to find where you're hiding your drugs, where you're hiding your guns. We will get warrants, we will seize them, we will prosecute you, and we will seek to hold you accountable in court, because we are charged with making our community safer, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Assistant Special Agent in Charge, John Noakes of the ATF.
Good morning. My name is John Noakes. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in Charge of the ATF here in the Columbus Field Division, which includes Southern Indiana and Indianapolis. I think citizens of this region should be proud of the way law enforcement partners have conducted this investigation. Yesterday's enforcement operation involved approximately 200 officers and agents, which include 8 tactical teams that spread out across the city to serve these warrants. That level of support and personnel were necessary so that this network could be taken into custody as safely as possible and to minimize the risk to uninvolved citizens. Nearly every federal, state, and local agency in this region has contributed in one way or another to this investigation and its outcome. The level of collaboration and cooperation from the various law enforcement entities for this investigation has been absolutely incredible. So I'd like to say thank you to them. Without each of the agencies working together, a case of this magnitude is simply not possible. Agents and detectives have tirelessly worked this investigation for at least a year. They have spent many long hours and late nights interacting and investigating with this dangerous group in order to perfect the criminal charges that have led us here today. I would like to specifically commend the Indiana Crime Guns Task Force for their leadership and the way they continue to target the most violent offenders in our city, day in and day out. They are doing a fantastic job, and ATF is a proud partner with them every day in that effort. As you heard, this organization is responsible for a significant number of NIBIN-related shootings in and around the Indianapolis area. ATF and our partners will continue leveraging the latest technologies, such as the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network and its Correlation Center, to reduce the gun violence that is plaguing this city and our nation. This investigation is not over. Investigators will remain hard at work and will continue dismantling this network and following leads wherever they may take them. We anticipate that additional arrests will be conducted in the days and weeks ahead. Specifically, we have 3 remaining fugitives from yesterday's operation that we need the public's assistance with. Those individuals are Joaquin Carranza, Jerron Bertram, and Jordan Sumner. Today we are announcing a reward of $15,000, $5,000 for each remaining fugitive, for information that leads to their arrest. Anyone who may know the whereabouts of these individuals are asked to contact 1-888-ATF-TIPS or the Indianapolis Crime Stoppers at 317-262-TIPS. Any assistance that the public can provide that will help law enforcement safely take these 3 into custody is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Good morning. Today, several of our community members in neighborhoods and communities across our city and beyond wake up this morning safer and more assured that today they can reimagine what their neighborhood and communities look like. Let me also take this opportunity to acknowledge the victims and victims' families impacted by the violence and illicit drug distribution attributed to members of the network of connected individuals. Today's announcement is a compilation of several months, days, hours, and minutes of innovative and collaborative investigative effort to reduce harm in Indianapolis. This case was initiated by IMPD ATF Task Force officer housed within the Indiana Crime Gun Task Force. The Indiana Crime Guns Task Force includes representatives of the ATF, Indiana State Police, Fishers Police, Zionsville Police, Boone County Sheriff's Office, Lawrence Police, Avon Police, and IMPD. I would like to acknowledge and thank the legislative support from the Indiana General Assembly that enables the task force to be highly effective at disrupting the cycle of violence both here in Marion County and beyond. Chief Taylor and IMPD will continue to forge federal partnerships that amplify our ability to make Indianapolis safer. Today, these partnerships are stronger than ever and serve as an unyielding message that our priority is to reduce violent crime, disrupt illicit drug trafficking, and interdict illegally possessed guns. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Gannon. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for DEA here in Indianapolis. First of all, thank you all for coming here. I'd like to just take a minute to acknowledge all my partners here. Thank each and every one of you for the outstanding job that you did and your agencies did with this investigation, so thank you. I'd also like to take a minute to specifically thank the members of our team with DEA, the Tactical Diversion Squad, that worked this investigation, and specifically the assigned Assistant United States attorneys who were responsible for prosecuting this investigation. And when you see all the people up here, you have to understand this is a very high-level investigation. It was an organized crime drug enforcement task force investigation, commonly known as OCDF. And that gives us the opportunity to put a lot of our resources with our state, local, and federal partners together, and that's exactly what you see here. And when we work these type of investigations, we go out there, we identify the most dangerous, violent, and high-level drug traffickers in our area of responsibility. And then what we do is we come up with efforts and plans to take them off the streets to make our community a safer place. And what we also do is we collaborate with our other partners. For example, in this case, we had connections and individuals that were associated with this drug trafficking organization that were out in Arizona. And as such, we had enforcement operations that were conducted in Arizona as well. And what we also try to do is we try to take it to the next level, knowing that all these pills that are coming into our country that are fake fentanyl pills are all coming from Mexico. So that's what we try to do in each and every investigation. And I think it's very important for people to understand what's going on in the country with the fentanyl abuse and the epidemic that we're facing. For the 2022 statistics, there was almost 110,000 overdose deaths. When you break that number down, that's equivalent to almost 300 people a day. If you could picture an airline filled with 300 people crashing every single day, that's what's happening throughout the United States with drug overdoses. And when you break that down even further, almost 82,000 of those overdose deaths are fentanyl opioid related. When you look at the numbers here for 2022 in Marion County, there was 852 drug overdoses. 641 of them were fentanyl opioid related. So I stand here today extremely proud of the work that we did. You heard U.S. Attorney Myers talk about it earlier today. There was over 300,000 fake fentanyl pills taken off our streets, including some of the rainbow fentanyl pills. In addition to that, there was over 113 guns taken off our street. So we're out here each and every day trying to make our community a safer and better place. And I also want to take 1 minute to just talk about the parents that lost someone or because of a fentanyl overdose death. We receive calls from them. It is absolutely heart-wrenching when they have to call up and they lost a loved one that died because of a fentanyl poisoning. So I want to tell them I'm thinking of them. It goes to my heart. And I also want to just thank each and every one of you for being here. And I would ask that if you are somebody that can help somebody that may have a drug problem, that you encourage them to get the necessary help that's available, because there's so many people that want to help people. And if you're a person that can do that, please be a pillar of strength and help people in your community, because we're all in this together. One life lost is one too many, so we need everybody to play a part in that. And thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Rodney Hopkins, Postal Inspector in charge for the Detroit Division, which covers the great states of Michigan and Indiana. What we have here today is an example of perfect law enforcement that works together to pool their resource and expertise to protect the citizens of Indianapolis and the surrounding counties from the perils of dangerous drugs. Defendants in this case used the United States mail to facilitate their criminal enterprise. Through cases like this, the Postal Inspector Service upholds its long mission to protect the public and prevent criminal misuse of the U.S. mail. Postal inspectors partner with our U.S. other law enforcement agencies and the U.S. Attorney's Office will aggressively identify and locate and prosecute these individuals. And thank you once again.
With that, we're happy to take any questions.
How large of a trafficking group is this, just to give context? Are these like mid-level drug traffickers, or is this a larger group?
Well, I think that when you're talking about 19 individuals with warrants needing to be executed across multiple districts and multiple states, and importantly, over 100 guns and over 300,000 fentanyl pills, that in no way could you characterize that as, a minor drug trafficking organization. These, I think, are exactly, the kinds of charges and the kinds of allegations that, rise to the top of the level of federal importance because of the scope of, the harm to the community that these sorts of offenses cause.
And they mentioned that the pills were coming from Mexico, so is this potentially connected to Mexican drug cartels?
So as the Department of Justice and DEA have been saying for a long time now, the information that we've developed is, and through, investigations all over the country and, internationally, is that the vast majority of the fentanyl that is coming into our country, whether in pill form already pressed or in powder form being sent here and being pressed into counterfeit pills or put in other preparations, here domestically, that the vast majority of it is being manufactured in Mexico, primarily by two cartels who have international reach and who are obtaining precursor chemicals from countries, across the ocean, whether it's in China or India or elsewhere, and sort of that trade of precursor chemicals to super labs across the border to fentanyl being pushed into our communities is something that we're trying to work together to stop, and those federal and state and local partnerships to be able to attack it at the largest level possible is why we're here today.
I think this question is for Kendall. We often talk about this revolving door of people in Indianapolis being involved in crime and then let out. We have this revolving cycle. The mayor has talked about his plan for public safety is getting the federal government involved to make sure these people are federally charged. Can you speak on if it does play a role in that, on the mitigating the crime here in Indianapolis?
Well, I mean, I think you see the result today, right? I mean, murders are down. It's not to say that the ones that have occurred don't impact our community. We will continue to fight to decrease that number. Non-fatal shootings is down just a little bit. We'll continue to work to try to decrease that number. But I think what you see here today sends a message to our community, and that we are unyielding in whatever effort to reduce violent crime, whether it be at the federal or at the state level. We had a case yesterday at the state level. Defendants were sentenced to over 100 plus years in a murder trial. Same here. I mean, we need every tool in the toolbox. There is no silver bullet that's going to fix the issues in our community. It's going to take all of us. I think DEA said it best. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take services. It's going to take strong enforcement. It's going to take collaboration, and this is just a part of that effort today. But I think we are starting to see some positive momentum in our community. We see more grassroots groups stepping up to the plate. Our partnership with OPHS, we see the numbers trending down. We hope that they continue to trend down because we know that as we head into these later months, we'll have to continue to work at the federal and state level to reduce that number.
So something that we've heard from sort of community advocates is that oftentimes when there are a large number of bad actors arrested like this in the coming months, there can be sort of a power struggle that leads to violence. Is that something that law enforcement will be keeping an eye on and trying to address, after these arrests?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny, we just had that conversation just prior to the operations. We'll be working with our operations division, our VCTF, VRTs, which are basically our proactive units to monitor. We'll be working with our analysts to analyze the data. And lastly, we'll be working with OPHS and going back to some of these neighborhoods to see what they can do in terms of trying to change people's lives, change people's mindsets so that they can get out of the game.
You spoke to the number of overdoses that we saw. Could you share those numbers again, overall in the country, but then locally you had mentioned?
Yes. On a national level, there's approximately 110,000 people that die of a drug overdose. Of that number, about 82,000 are fentanyl or opioid related. Here in Marion County, for the 2022 statistics, there was 852 that died of a drug overdose, and about 641 of them were fentanyl opioid related. In the state of Indiana, there's over 2,800 drug overdoses that occurred for 2022, and I think it's around about 1,800 were fentanyl opioid related, if I'm not mistaken. But what's so important is, like I said, when we go out and we do our jobs each and every day to try to make our community safe, but we do need people that do not have drug problems, that have everything going good for them, that can go out and make a difference in somebody's life. And that's why we need the community to come together to make a difference, because when you get calls like we all do from a devastated family member that lost someone, it's brutal. It'll never be the same for them. A holiday, a birthday, a special celebration, and they lost a loved one. So we need to combat this together. So thank you for your question.
This is a U.S. mail question. Just to talk about the mechanism of how this investigation or how this trafficking ring was identified, because somebody might think, oh, well, if you put something in the mail, wouldn't you guys have caught this quicker? Why did it take a year to be able to kind of bring these people to justice? So how was this ring identified, and how long did it take for you guys to realize that they were using the U.S. Postal Service to traffic drugs?
Our inspectors across the country come back and taking dangerous drugs out the mail. Once they identify packages that are related and using intel, and this is part of the network showing the partnership we have with other agencies, they quickly got in touch with ATF, IMPD, and be able to collaborate together. And once everybody collaborated together, then started working on databases, doing intel, doing surveillances, doing, as we say, controlled deliveries, doing search warrants, other opportunities. That led to that investigation. So it wasn't that just a year that we just kind of sat down. During that year time, we were actively doing investigation steps to identify the individual to be here at this point now.
Trying to get basically as many members of the ring as possible rather than going after them in a quick fashion and maybe not getting everything.
Yes, correct.
And one thing that I should mention is Special Agent Gannon was talking about the fentanyl pills and the danger they pose. The DEA tests, pills that it seizes in the course of law enforcement investigations. And for the last year that they tested, over 60% of the pills that they seized and were tested were found to have a potentially fatal dose of fentanyl in that one pill. And so this 320,000 pills that were taken off the street represent 320,000, guns with 3 out of the 5, chambers loaded with a round that could kill you if you use that pill. And so it's just so critical for law enforcement to work, to identify when these things are being trafficked through the mail, when they're being trafficked in the street, when they're being trafficked by individuals who are illegally armed, and if guns are involved in violence as well. That this is what we are here to do for the public, is to identify these greatest threats and bring law enforcement action to address the biggest problems that are killing our friends and family in the community.
It looks like all these operations and arrests yesterday happened in a pretty small window of time. I'm sure there's probably a strategic reason for that, but how much precision goes into a coordinated, large-scale operation like that, planning, coordination?
Well, there's a reason that you see so many agencies represented here today, not just for the investigation, but for the execution of enforcement actions just like that, we're primarily focused on not just getting the people who need to be taken into custody, not just seizing both evidence of the crimes and also contraband that poses a danger to the community, but we want to make sure that we're doing so in a way that the defendants are safely coming into custody, that the public is not put at risk during these enforcement actions whenever we can reduce that, and that the law enforcement agents all come home safe to their families. And I think that a tremendous amount of planning between all the agencies involved and our prosecutors and their knowledge and experience and skill and their care for doing this the right way and doing things safely was what brought us to a successful series of enforcement actions yesterday.
Should people consider these fugitives armed and dangerous? What do they do when they see them?
I'll defer to I'll let ATIF SAC know Sam about it.
Sir, I would say yes. As you've heard the U.S. Attorney and the rest of us talk about how dangerous this group has been. We believe at this time they know that we're looking for them, which kind of raises that element of threat, right? They know that they're facing serious federal time. So I would absolutely ask that anyone who may know where these individuals are to contact law enforcement and let us handle taking them into custody, as I would absolutely consider them armed and dangerous.
Considering that you guys seized 113 guns during the course of the search warrants, is there any suspicion that they might be connected to other crimes such as murder, robbery, aggravated assault?
Yeah, so 100%. So as I told you, I don't think we're handing out the number today, but I can tell you a very, very significant number of related shootings to the firearms we've taken off this crew. So we use the NIBIN network for that you're familiar with. I think the U.S. Attorney also told you there were at least 60 machine gun conversion devices taken off this crew. You've seen the demonstrations where these machine gun conversion devices are firing 30 rounds in 2 seconds or less. So that's why the round count of a lot of these crime scenes have gone up tremendously. And the opportunity for innocent bystanders to be shot by those bullets, we all know what that means, right? So I think that probably speaks for itself.
Is this one of the biggest drug trafficking rings that's been taken down in Indiana?
I can tell you, maybe Mike will be the best to talk about that, but I can tell you that all the investigators, obviously we've had many briefings up to this point, and we have been reassured that this is a significant source of fentanyl for the state of Indiana.
Well, I think every case that you have is unique, and obviously there's been other organizations that have been responsible for very violent behavior, such as the Grundy organization and other things that come up in cases. But this is a very significant case. You heard U.S. Attorney Myers talk about it. When it comes to fentanyl, just 2 milligrams, enough to fit on the tip of a pencil, can be a lethal dosage unit. And when you look at the statistics that DEA put out, there was over 50, I think it was 59 million fake fentanyl pills were seized with law enforcement and their partners last year. And when you think about that all getting on the street, and 6 out of every 10 potentially having a fatal dosage unit, just staggering numbers. So it's a great way to dismantle people that were obviously going to cause a lot of harm in our community. When you look at the guns that were seized and you look at the amount of fentanyl just alone, when we're over 300,000 fake fentanyl pills, so just think of one pill could kill somebody. So obviously this is a tremendous job. Very proud of the work that all of the agencies did in this case, and every case is unique. And what we did here is we took off some high-level drug dealers that were moving enormous amounts of fentanyl and firearms. Thank you.
And one follow-up to the question about the danger that the fugitives pose. I would say to these 3 individuals who are out there in the community, turn yourself in. You see all the law enforcement agencies here who are all out there looking for you. You see the reward that is out there for you, and people in the community are going to be incentivized to let law enforcement know where you are. The safest way to ensure that you are taken into custody and are able to face these charges, which are only allegations until we prove them beyond a reasonable doubt in court, face the charges against you, put up any defense you might have, but come in safely. So I encourage you to turn yourself in, but know that we're not waiting for that, and we're going to come find you.
If you have a message for anybody who is still involved in this, still in the game, as we say, who sees this and is not deterred by any of this, what's your message to them?
Well, if they're not deterred by the types of federal enforcement actions and the types of potential federal criminal exposure you're looking at, I mean, some of these, many of these charges carry up to life in federal prison. And if that's not enough to deter people who are doing this from engaging in their crimes, then they're next. But I would hope that those who are considering getting into this business realize that it's not worth it, that you are causing so much harm to your own community, to your own friends, to your own families. I'm sure these drug traffickers have people that they care about who are dying of these drugs, who are getting shot by these weapons. And they're human beings too, and they should turn on that human side of themselves and just stop, because what's happening in our community is unacceptable. With that, if there are any other questions, thank you guys very much. We appreciate your time.